We bringing our man Trey Wingo here. Our man Trey, what up, baby?
Can you take me higher? That's all I want to know.
Well, hey, so we just drew a comp that Nick Sirianni, the coach of the Philadelphia Eagles, is Creed from The Office.
Oh, no, I don't think so.
Is that not fair?
Creed, really? Like Creed Bratton?
What does Nick Sirianni do?
Well, that's a great question. All right, okay, okay, I get it now. I get it. I wasn't sure where we were going with the. Well, what he does, I've always said this before. Like, if there was a magazine called "The World's Most Punchable Face," Nick Sirianni might be the cover boy for it. I mean, a little hangdog expression, you know.
And then he's got.
I think he does some things. I'll give Nick Sirianni credit for this. Right, he knew to be the best head coach that he could be, he needed to get rid of play calling, because a lot of these guys that are play callers hang on to that like grim death, right? And he knew if he needed to coach the entire team, he can't have his face in the chart the entire time. So I'll give Nick credit for that. I just think, you lost Steichen, you lost Gannon, and people say, oh, we'll just replace those guys. Like, I remember when Steve Young was playing for the 49ers and Mike Shanahan left, I think at that point, to go be the Raiders head coach. And I remember Steve saying, oh, we don't need an offensive coordinator. This offense can run by itself. And they had a bad year the next year. So I think losing the coordinators was a bigger deal than people realized at the time.
I always trip off the fact that, because obviously Niners fan, could not stand Sirianni, couldn't stand him all year, was talking crazy about him all year. And I'd sit back and, they start losing and I revel in it. I told you Sirianni was a bum. I told you. And I just sit back. I was like, what if he's like the nicest guy in the world? And I've just been
I don't know if he's the nicest guy in the world. I mean, like, after they beat the Chiefs, he walking out of Arrowhead, he yelled, hey, Chiefs fans, see ya. I don't want to hear that bleep anymore. And they went 2-5 after that. And then,
I love it. Hey, that thought didn't get me to stop talking about Sirianni. It's just a thought that
I had. Proper introduction. Our man Trey Wingo with us. Trey does a little bit of everything. He's got a podcast coming up on Amazon after the Super Bowl. He's on the Stun app, does work for PGA. Trey, I miss you desperately covering the NFL, man. You are one of the absolute best to cover this game. So we're excited to talk about championship weekend with you. And I set this up earlier. I'm anxious to get your thoughts on Brock Purdy. Like, you always have a very even keel look at quarterbacks in this league. And you feverishly defended Josh Allen against the haters a week or so ago. What is your opinion on Brock Purdy?
Yeah, just real quickly on the Josh stuff. Like, it's sort of and look, we're all guilty of this. And by I mean the media in all of this, because we always turn to the quarterback. The quarterback is a massively important thing. But in the two most heartbreaking losses that you can remember over the last 2-3 seasons for the Bills, Josh Allen did almost everything right. Like, he got them the lead with 13 seconds to play in the divisional round at Arrowhead 2 years ago. He's not the one that decided not to squib it. And, Josh made perfect throws to Sherfield and Diggs, and they just didn't come up with a catch late down the stretch. And people say, well, he missed that Shakur in the end zone on that 3rd and 9. Yeah, because Chris Jones pushed the left tackle into his face. I mean, that's why he missed him. Like, it's a team game. Teams win games. Teams lose games. Teams win championships. I think Brock has done a remarkable job. And the thing that I liked most about Brock, when there wasn't a lot to like in the game against Green Bay, is that when he had to have it, he found a way to course correct. Like, to me, the best thing an athlete can do, whether it's Tiger Woods in the middle of a golf round, or Russell Wilson a few years ago in the NFC Championship game against the Packers, or Tom Brady in Super Bowl 51, when he was terrible. And then they suddenly have an opportunity to go find and win the game, and they do it. Brock was very uneven in that game, except that last drive. And as your co-host knows, the Niners are not really good at coming from behind. That's only the second time in 34 games that they've trailed by 5 points or more in the fourth quarter and came away with a win, or three or more. So when they had to have it, he delivered. And I think that's the best thing you could say about Brock, because to me, that's the hardest thing for an athlete to do, is to course correct during the actual game, not go back and look at tape and fix your swing or whatever, but as it's happening in real time, to course correct. And I thought that was really impressive.
And some of the discussion that we had on this show is, I had a tweet after the Bills game, And I think Josh Allen is a good quarterback. I don't think he's as good
He's a
as
great quarterback. He's a great quarterback. He's not a good quarterback. He's a great quarterback.
see
He's
Trey.
a
I don't
great
think
quarterback.
I don't think he's as good as some people say he is. And
Okay,
it's
so let me ask you this question then, and that's fair. Okay, obviously we're starting with Mahomes, right? Let's just
Mhm.
know all in. No, Mahomes is number one. So give me your 2, 3, 4, and 5.
It would, and so here's the thing, right? It would probably be Lamar, and I would have Josh Allen up there, right? Like I'd have him
But
up there
where?
on that level.
Like 3?
I think he's behind Lamar. And here's where I got in trouble, or accordingly, I said I think Brock Purdy is on the same level as Josh Allen, and I made the argument that I think people conflate physical gifts with actual production sometimes. Purdy can't throw the ball as far as Josh Allen on a rope. He
Yeah, no
can't
question.
throw it as fast and do all this other stuff. He can't run the way Josh Allen does. But when you talk about playing the position of quarterback and leading and running an offense, I think he does that just as good as anybody else in the league, including Josh Allen. And I want to get your opinion on this too. And I
Yeah.
think you understand what I'm saying. I'm not calling Brock Purdy Joe Montana, but it reminds
Good.
me it reminds me of Montana versus Marino and Elway.
Yeah.
Montana was not as physically gifted
No, that's
and
fair.
blessed as Elway and Marino, but he understood how to play the position of quarterback as good as anybody there ever was. And
Yeah.
right now, I'm not saying ever was. Right now, I think Brock plays the position of quarterback as good as anybody in the league.
Well, here's where I would just slightly disagree on a couple of those things. I 100% agree. Arm strength is the most overrated thing when judging a quarterback. Because if it was arm strength, Jeff George would have been the greatest quarterback in the history of
Jamarcus
football.
Russell on a knee
Jay
throwing
Cutler.
70 yards.
Jay Cutler would have been the greatest quarterback in the history of football. So you have to have arm talent, but you don't have to have arm arrogance. Like Aaron Rodgers, Mahomes, Burrow, and Josh, they have arm arrogance to me. They can fit it in anywhere. So what you're talking about now is, okay, when do you decide to do that, and when do you dial it back, and do you have all the speeds, right? Do you have all the pitches? Because Garrett Wilson, the rookie for the not a rookie anymore, but when he was in his rookie year with the Jets, they were talking about the difference of a ball that Joe Flacco throws as opposed to Zach Wilson. And he said something that nobody really picked up on at the time because Zach was injured that year going into last season, and Joe Flacco had to play the first 3 or 4 games of the year. And he said, yeah, Joe just throws more catchable ball because Joe knows when to use the changeup, knows when the slider, when to throw the fastball, the 2-seamer. Zach was just pop, 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 howitzer, So that goes to what you're talking about. There's playing the quarterback and having athletic skills. You're 100% right. The only thing I would say is Josh's production is unmatched. I mean, we're talking about 40 total touchdowns over the last 4 seasons, or 4 straight seasons, rather, of at least 40 touchdowns. That's never happened before. He's a really productive, good, accurate quarterback. And I think the Bills sometimes do him a disservice, whereas Brock is told, hey, you don't have to do everything, all right? We have, hopefully, Debo for the NFC Championship game. We have Ayuk. We have Kittle. We have CMC. Let's get everybody involved. Let's mix and match. I think the Buffalo Bills, on more than one occasion, and I think that's one of the reasons they fired Ken Dorsey, was that they said, Josh, go do everything. And when they turned their season around after 6-6, it was when they got Cook more involved, when Shakur started to become more involved in the offense. Josh became more of a player in a system as opposed to a guy who is the system. And I think that was a real evolution for him this year. And it's really similar to what the Niners asked Brock Purdy to do.
But so, and real quick, that is what you just said is looked at as a testament, and not by you. I'm just saying, just in general, as a testament to Josh Allen's greatness, but it's looked at as a demerit for Brock Purdy's game.
See, it's stupid. That's stupid. I agree with you. That's dumb. Like Brock is asked to do what he's supposed to do and what he's capable of doing. And like people, like I give you an example. The Cleveland game, to me, I thought, where they lost, I thought was one of Brock's best games this year because Trent went out. Debo went out. They're playing, as it turned out to be at the end of the season, the number 1 defense in the NFL on the road in bad weather, in the rain. And what did he do? Without all those weapons, he took them down the field. I think it was, a 41-yard field goal that would have won the game. And that's basically an elongated extra point at this point. A 5-yard penalty or for a false start on a extra point is 38 yards. Kid just missed a 41-yarder. Like, he put his team in a position to win the game with his play. it shouldn't be looked as, I mean, Cam Newton went off on this tangent talking about system quarterbacks and all this kind of stuff. And that was a weird sort of thing that Cam did this year, much like his outfits, which is a separate issue.
I love his
I
outfits.
love Cam. I love it. Well, the outfits are they costumes? Like that's Tim Hasselbeck used to not. Is that an outfit? Is that an outfit? Or is that really a costume?
When he wears
really
the sneakers or something like that, like, all right, Cam, let's just stop.
The feathers coming out of the hat, whatever. But yeah, I think Brock is doing what he's supposed to do. And when someone tries to do something they're not supposed to do or does too much, I think that was Jalen Hurts' problem this year. Oh, besides the fact that his knee wasn't right since the early October. You can't convince me otherwise. You could see it in that first Commanders game, and he limped through the entire season. But sometimes when an athlete or a quarterback gets a big contract, they feel like they need to live up to that contract. When in reality, they got the contract for what they've already done, And so it can mess with your head. And I think a lot of times people, I got this big deal. I've got to do more. I've got to be this that I wasn't. No. They paid you for what you are. So just do that. And Brock has done a really good job, in my opinion, of doing exactly what he's supposed to do. This is not Jimmy Garoppolo, okay, where you won an NFC Championship game throwing it 8 times a couple years ago against Green Bay. They're going to let Brock throw. They're going to give him opportunities. He just has to know when to go for it and when to just sort of, sometimes an incompletion is the best thing a quarterback can throw.
Mm-hmm.
It's true.
With all that said, who do you think has the better quarterback in the NFC Championship?
Well, that's a very interesting question. I think weather's going to be good, right? It's going to be like in the mid-60s.
Yeah.
No rain.
Nope.
Detroit has struggled on the road and especially outdoors. You go look at that game they played against the Ravens. Now, albeit the Ravens, pretty good defense in October, but they got run out of that building. They just got destroyed in that game. I think that Jared has probably been a little more consistent this season, but I don't think there's a swing one way or the other. Like it's for me, it's not like, oh, Goff is here and Purdy's here, or Purdy's here and Goff's way down here. I'm trying to figure out where my hands are on the screen. I think it's negligible. I don't think either team has a massive advantage at quarterback.
Yeah, I like Jared Goff and the way he's played. I didn't think he was going to be this good when he got to Detroit. Obviously, we saw him with the Rams, and he regressed year after year, it felt like, and I thought his career was on his way to being the career backup. But his 2 years in Detroit, he's played really well. I'm expecting him to be formidable on Sunday, but I do look at the home and road splits with him as an issue. And you talk about being outdoors, and yeah, Baltimore is Baltimore, but they got destroyed by Chicago. And I know that's a divisional game as well.
No.
They have
not played well outdoors. They have not.
They look like two different teams outdoors on the road, and I'm looking at that to see how they respond to that on Sunday.
Yeah, I'm surprised the number is as big as it is, Damian. I mean, 7 I thought was a big number, especially with the way San Francisco played against the Packers on defense. Like Chase Young was a non-factor in that game. He's got to show up on Sunday. Now, it certainly helps that the Lions' offensive line is banged up, right? Joseph's out, and I don't know what they're going to get out of Ragnow because he's, everything hurt on him, ankle, knee, all that kind of stuff. So, but they can't give up the run to Detroit the way they gave up the run to Green Bay. I mean, Aaron Jones killed the Cowboys and he killed the 49ers in that game. And the Lions have that ability with Montgomery and then the change of pace guy, the rookie Gibbs. Mm-hmm. But I do think that the offensive line, no one's talking enough about the offensive line issues for the Detroit Lions, which is a huge advantage for San Francisco.
Is that what swings? If it's not the quarterback position that swings this game, what do you think does? Is it the offensive line or is it something else?
I think they cannot allow the Lions to run the way the Packers ran on them. That just can't be, especially if we were talking about this defense as being so elite with playmakers, and they do all across the defensive line, linebacking core, obviously a little suspect in secondary in some areas, quit getting all those penalties. But I do think, look, the Lions, if they can start fast, right? 10-3, 13-7, 17-7, something like that. That changes the way San Francisco is built to bully you and wear you down. Like that's the way they're built. They're great. They're great front runners, right? Once they get on you, they step on you and they keep you down there. If you can hang with them for a while, sometimes that offense takes a little issue. And obviously that Debo's availability is huge, right? You've seen the numbers. I think they're 8-9 without him and 53-23 when he plays. So we talk about the quarterbacks all the time. Why don't we talk about Debo in that same way? He's just as important as the quarterback to this 49ers team, the way they're built.
Yeah, no, for sure. I look at how they played on Saturday. I went back and watched the game, and in the moment, because I'm emotional about, like, I've watched it as a fan before reporting, and I was just a mess, Trey. I was a mess. I was in shambles, right? And I thought, they played terrible. They didn't do this and that. And then after the result was already done, and I can go back and watch the game, I thought the defense played a little better than people give them credit for. They got dealt a short field one of the times with the run back. When they stood up in the red zone, I think the Packers got there 5 times. They allowed 2 touchdowns out of those 5 times in the red zone.
Right.
They stood up a little bit, and then there was a position in the third quarter when it got to 21 points. And I said, I think they're going to have to pitch a shutout the rest of the way to win this game. And they did just that and forced 2 turnovers in that time. So I don't know if it's rest type thing and they had to get into the groove or what, but I think the defense played a little bit better on Saturday than people give them credit for. I mean, Jordan Love had 180 yards passing going into that final drive.
Right, but they were running the ball so effectively, he didn't have to throw it that much. I mean, that's the other way to look at that. I mean, they were really effective on the run. All I'm saying is they can't give up the run to Detroit the way they gave it up to the Packers.
They won't.
Oh,
Niners by 2 scores. Niners by 2 scores. Right. And Detroit's a good team. Detroit, I got nothing bad.
They are a good
team, but I think this is the Niners' time. I think this is their time. They worked hard to get this game. This is something they haven't had the last 2 times. This game in their stadium. That was the goal. Remember, I told you in August, like, they've got to get the NFC Championship game at home. Yep. They worked hard to get there. I think they'll take advantage of it.
Who you got on the other side?
Well, it's interesting, right? This is the first time I can recall where I look at the Chiefs and say they're not the better team, right? I all last year, even with the Bengals coming in as well as they played, and 2 years ago when the Bengals upset them after the Chiefs had a brain fart at the end of the first half and they didn't get an easy 3 points that probably would have sealed that game and taken them. We're talking about Chiefs maybe going to their 4th or 5th straight Super Bowl in that scenario. The Chiefs are not the better team, but the Ravens under the Lamar Jackson era have quite frankly underperformed in the postseason. This is the 6th straight AFC Championship game appearance for these Chiefs. They know what this is all about. They know the moment. I think the way the Chiefs win is if Mahomes goes into God mode. Pacheco, who's a little banged up, has a big day. Rashee Rice has to be big. And the Ravens are going to have to spit the bit a little. And I don't know if they will, but I want to see how they react to the moment, right? That was the first divisional round win for the Ravens under the Lamar Jackson era. They had 1 wild card win over Tennessee. They were 1 and done in 2019 as the number 1 seed. And then they lost to Buffalo a couple of years ago. And obviously Lamar didn't play last year because of injuries. So I'm curious. The moment it's a thing, man. Like I think Championship Sunday is harder than the Super Bowl because if you're honest about it, everybody that plays just wants the opportunity. Just give me a chance to play for it all, right? And coming up short, 1 game shy of that is devastating. I've talked to a lot of former players that lost on Championship Sunday and lost in the Super Bowl, and their thought process was, yeah, it sucked, but at least we were there. We took our shot. We had our opportunity. We didn't cash in. We didn't play well. It went against us, whatever. At least we were there. And I think there's sometimes way more pressure on Championship Sunday than there is in the Super Bowl because you're this close to getting that one thing you want.
Yeah.
And that can change people. So I'm curious to see how the Ravens they should win. They're the better team. Number 1 scoring defense. They might be even healthier. They're getting Mark Andrews back. We know Joe Tooney is already out. He's one of the interior he's one of the guards for the Chiefs. Their threesome of Creed, Trey Smith, and Tooney, center guard, might be the best middle of an offensive line in the NFL. Now, Allegretti played well against Buffalo, but this is a different Ravens team. And all that room that Kelsey had against those linebackers, those are all backup linebackers for the Bills. Ravens linebackers are as good as any unit in football. Now, I'm not saying the Chiefs can't win, but the Ravens should win. And it'll be, if they have a first half, for example, like the Ravens did against the Texans, it was only 10-10. And I get the Texans' only score was the punt return. They had 23 yards passing in the first half. Lamar was 7 of 11, I think, for 54 yards and a couple of big sacks. I mean, there was no offensive continuity. They can't play that way against Kansas City. They're going to have to be a more consistent offense.
So it's a long, in-depth answer about how the Ravens went. Hey, how did the Chiefs win? Patrick Mahomes. That's just
God mode. God
yeah,
mode.
Patrick Mahomes, just essentially like
God
that.
Mode. Yeah.
Trey, you do all that work on the PGA Tour. What's the podcast you got coming up after the Super Bowl?
Oh, thanks. Yeah, we do one every week with Chase Daniel for the 33rd team, longtime backup quarterback. That's been fun. But we're starting a new one.
He's an all-time great backup quarterback, by the way. Like that is, I mean, that's an all-time bag hitter. Oh yeah,
nine touchdowns, 40 million in guaranteed money.
That's what I'm talking.
9 touchdowns. I gave him grief on the first episode. I didn't even get double digits. Like, you didn't get double digits, man, but you got 40 large.
Hey,
so good
that's
for
all
you.
that matters. That double digits matters way more than the touchdowns do.
Agreed. So this one's with my old SportsCenter co-host Kevin Frazier.
Oh,
it's
nice.
called alternate routes, and the premise is we take one defining moment in a game or something in sports, and what if it had gone the other way, and how things would have changed. It's like a sliding doors approach down the rabbit hole. For example, one of the first ones we're going to do is, what if the Seahawks just gave the ball to Marshawn Lynch? What if they gave the ball to Marshawn Lynch instead of throwing it inside to their fourth best receiver in Ricardo Lockett, and Malcolm Butler makes the interception? Well, if that happens, the Seahawks become the first team to repeat a Super Bowl champ since the Patriots in 38 and 39. The Patriots would have then lost their last 3 Super Bowls. Does that mean Tom Brady goes earlier and they go to Jimmy Garoppolo in the 2015 season? Does Tom then go to San Francisco and team up with Jim Harbaugh and they create a dynasty there? Pete Carroll would have been the only head coach in the history of football with multiple championships in college and the NFL. That's a pretty good trump card to play. And Skittles might have replaced Tums as the stomach medicine when you were having a little upset stomach.
Oh, that's fire.
There's all these wormholes you can go down, right? Russell never meets up with Sierra, and all these other things go crazy, right?
And Kenny still has a chance.
Yeah, exactly.
Shout out
telling me there's a chance. So you just take one moment and you change it, and everything looks differently. So the first episode is going to drop after the Super Bowl. It's called Alternate Routes. It's going to be a lot of fun. We also, another one we're doing, what if the coin flip for Magic Johnson in the NBA's first round between the Bulls and the Lakers? What if he goes to the Bulls? Michael Jordan never goes to Chicago. Where does Michael Jordan go? Do the Showtime Lakers ever exist? Like, it's a fascinating thing to do. So it's going to be fun. We're really looking forward to it.
I wasn't expecting you to say Kevin Frazier. Are you going to do this with like entertainment too? Like, what if Will Smith took the Matrix role? Like,
listen. Who do you think gave me the Sierra news? Right? Like, we've got one. Okay, how about this one? Just and we'll explain it on the episode. We've got one scenario with that coin flip where Charles Barkley and not Barack Obama is the first black president.
Yo,
that's a good one. And it makes perfect sense. It makes perfect sense.
I'm tapped in. What's the name of this podcast again?
Alternate Routes, and it's on Amazon, Wondery Plus, or wherever you get your podcasts. First episode's going to drop Monday after the Super Bowl.
Oh, that is tremendous.
Yeah, I'm tapped in.
Yeah,
sure.
you got a whole host of listeners for that right now. That's good stuff. I said it to start, man. I miss you covering the game, but I miss you overall, man. I hope everything's well. I was telling everyone you're 2 hours behind us, man. You're living the good life right now as you deserve.
Thanks, brother. We're here half the year, and then on the East Coast the other half of the year. But it's always good to catch up with you guys, Damian. Always good to talk to you, man. I appreciate you.
Indeed. Appreciate you, my friend. Thanks, Trey.
See you guys. Take care.